Let's go.
Let's go. Oh, no.
Do you want to?
Sorry. I'll let you.
Next one. I'm excited and I feel relaxed and I'm ready to party. Don't say sorry. You don't need to do that. You don't need to apologize. It's a fucked up female habit. You don't need to be sorry for anything ever.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I don't have rage issues!
I have nothing to prove to you.
When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Hello, and welcome to Citizen Dame, the podcast where we talk about other things, not just Hitchcock, but, you know, once in a while. I'm Karen Peterson, joined by Lauren Humphreys Brooks.
Untrue. This is a Hitchcock podcast from now on. That's all we're actually talking about. I haven't said this to Karen, but that's actually what we're doing. She doesn't really have a choice on the matter.
This has been your goal all along, hasn't it?
Like I said before we started recording, my goal next year is to somehow manage to work one Hitchcock film into at least everything that we do. Just like Karen, you know what would fit really well here? I think we should talk about Psycho again, Karen. It's not like we haven't covered it multiple times.
I mean, there's always more to say about Psycho. Come on.
Always, yes. So,
yeah. All right. Well, how are you, Lauren?
I'm pretty good. It is the weather is lovely. Finally here in New York. Going to celebrate that for a while. Yeah, it's like end of August. Apparently, it's not quite fall weather, but it's because it has been so hot. It feels like it's fall weather. It's like, oh my God, it's like in the mid 70s. It's fall, everybody.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, it was like 105 on Monday, and by Friday it was in the 80s. And
oh man.
Yeah. And when you think about that difference, and it's like, okay, so that's significant.
Yeah.
And especially in 1 week. It was really lovely. And it was so funny because I was walking out of work on Thursday and I was really confused because on Monday it had been so hot. It had actually been humid too. It had kind of rained a little bit. And I walked out on Thursday and my brain just couldn't process that it wasn't hot outside. It actually felt kind of cool. And then when I saw it was in the 80s, I was just like, wow. I guess that makes sense because it's a big drop, but it felt like it was more like in the 60s.
Yeah, when it's been so hot, and you guys have had a lot of hot weather recently, and we have over the summer, and when it's so hot and then it drops like that, yeah, you feel like, oh, it's autumn.
Yeah,
and just like, no, it's 85 actually, but it's a difference of 20 degrees. So
yep. Yeah, but that's okay. So it is Labor Day weekend. Are you doing anything fun to celebrate?
Possibly seeing some friends, going into the city. I was upstate last weekend, seeing friends and seeing their babies. And I've said before, and Heather Sorelli, who is listening to this as well, I have to say, my friends, I'm not a kid person. I'm not like, kids are fine. I don't have anything against them, but I'm not like, oh, kids are wonderful, I want to hang out with them all the time.
You're not like, pass me the babies, pass me all the babies.
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm just like, all right, you're cool, you're all right. I accept your existence. That's nice. These kids are very cool though, so I will say they are superior children in every possible way. They're better than anybody else's children. And some of them seem to really take to me as well. One of my friends, like littlest, I think he's like 1.5, and apparently, he just like got up and sat beside me and like put his back against me, like hung out. I was like, all right.
Aw, that's so cute.
Because and he was very fascinated by, I have a chain on my wallet, and he was fascinated by that as well. So he's just like, ooh, you've got interesting accoutrements. So yeah, so it's kind of a chill weekend for me because there was a lot also.
Nice, yeah. So I have a friend who's getting married next weekend, and he and his wife to be both have Disney passes like we do. Like my whole friend group does. So on Monday, they are going to Disneyland, and they just kind of told a couple of us about it. And so I decided to turn that into their bachelorette party. So That's what we're doing. We're doing bachelorette thing at Disneyland on Monday. So
I'm gonna have a Mickey stripper.
you know what? I've got some things planned.
Donald Duck just comes. He's just like, the pants are already off. I'm gonna take off the shirt
Exactly.
next.
See, he's
Yeah.
halfway there. So anyway, that's what we're doing. I'm also excited because this is like the silliest thing, but I get to go get my car washed today. And the reason this is a big deal is because I had a crack in my windshield that I finally got replaced. So now I can go take it and get a proper car wash. It's going to feel so nice. So those are my big weekend plans.
It's funny how those kinds of things though can you just say, oh, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
Like it's it's weird, and it's the kind of thing that when I was a teenager I've been like, oh my God, what is you're such a loser. But it is. It's just like, this is nice. This thing that I have to, getting your car washed, I was really excited to vacuum my apartment yesterday because it's like, it's clean. Oh my God. Thank Jesus.
Yes. Oh, exactly. Okay. All right. Well, should we talk movies? And a specific movie, to be exact. All right. Well, this week we are finishing off our Hitchcockian August, even though some of you are not, well, none of you are hearing this until September, but that's okay. It's fine. Anyway, this week we are talking about Wait Until Dark, which is from 1967. It was directed by Terrence Young and stars Audrey Hepburn, who was nominated for Best Actress for this movie. It also stars Alan Arkin in one of his earliest film roles, and Richard Crenna, Efrem Zimbalist Jr., and oh my gosh, what was his name?
Jack Weston.
Thank you. Jack Weston.
Carlino, who's very recognizable. Like he's in a lot. He's one of those character actors that he just did a lot of stuff in this era.
Yeah. Like he was in The Cincinnati Kid, Thomas Crown Affair, High Road to China. Did you ever see the movie High Road to China?
No.
With Tom Selleck.
I've never even heard of it.
Oh my gosh. That was like, we saw that several times in the theater because my mom was obsessed with Tom Selleck in the 80s. I mean, she probably still is. But anyway, that was a fun one. He was in Dirty Dancing. So he's been in lots of stuff. Very recognizable guy.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So this, like I said, this was Audrey Hepburn was nominated for Best Actress. She did not win, and she was the only Oscar nominee from the movie. She did not win. She actually lost to Katharine Hepburn for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
An interesting year at the Oscars, really.
Yeah, 1967 was the year In the Heat of the Night won Best Picture.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so also in the Best Actress category, you had Anne Bancroft for The Graduate, Faye Dunaway for Bonnie and Clyde, and Dame Edith Evans for The Whisperers. So
it's quite a lineup.
Yeah. That's a great category there. Yeah. So Lauren, this was your first time watching Wait Until Dark.
It was.
Which I was shocked when I found this out.
Well, as I think I said on the last episode, it's not like I've avoided watching it particularly. I just haven't watched it. I think every time it has been on a streaming service that I had, I just didn't wind up seeing it, and then it went off the service and I forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually, when you suggested this, I was like, oh, that's great, because this will be a movie I haven't seen, and I wanted to see it. It has this big reputation and everything, so I was excited about watching it. Yeah.
So without getting into the specifics, because of course we're going to do that, what were your overall just general impressions of the movie?
As I sent you while I was watching the movie, I was very stressed out, Karen. I was incredibly stressed the entire time. So, we're talking about this in the view of like Hitchcockian films, Hitchcockian thrillers. And I also happen, as I said last week, I've also happened to be reading a slasher novel, which I recently finished. Excellent book, highly recommend it. My Heart is a Chainsaw, fantastic. But so I was very much in like a thriller horror movie mindset when I was watching this, and I think that it does such a great job at building suspense. It has those edges of, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit, it has those edges of schlockiness. Like, it's a good production, it's got good performances and good actors, but there is just that, like, it's very and this is not I'm not saying this is a bad thing. It's contrived, right? You get this setup of like, oh, this blind woman who is home alone, and you've got reasons why she's home alone, like all of this, that you can see kind of the progression of like building up to the arrival of the horror, right? And it, in that sense, it is weirdly enough, and probably because I was reading this book at the same time, I was sitting there going like, this is kind of slashery, right? Not quite in the same genre, obviously, but it has a lot of those elements of that building of suspense, the introduction of the killer, of the villain, the kind of purposelessness of the violence, and of the psychological aspects as well. And it's very well done. The Wikipedia article actually compares it to The Spiral Staircase, which deals with a girl who's mute, and Sorry, Wrong Number, right, which we've talked about before, but again, physically disabled. So it kind of falls into this category that we get more of in the late 60s and the early 70s, of particularly women who are disabled in some way. So mute, deaf, blind. You could even put something like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane into this category. But so like physically disabled in some way that then get menaced by a killer or a criminal or something, and have to sort of wind up often using their disability against their assailants. And I quite like that film for this. So yes, I was very stressed, but I enjoyed it a great deal.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did. I'm always a little bit nervous when I say, oh, you should watch this movie, and then you do. I'm always a little bit like, I really hope you don't hate it and hate me.
I would never hate you. I might be like, Karen, what is going on here? I would never hate you I would just be like, I think you're wrong. Like, that's really it.
Okay, fair enough. So Wait Until Dark was originally a play, actually, that premiered in 1966. So it didn't take long for them to rush this to production as a movie as well. The play was written by Frederick Knott and originally starred Lee Remick as the Suzy character that Audrey Hepburn would play in the movie. And do you know who played Rote on stage?
Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall.
I looked it up actually, just right before we started. I was like, who played? Like, did Alan Arkin? Actually, I was interested in whether or not Alan Arkin had originated the role. And no, Robert Duvall would be terrifying in that part.
Could you imagine? Yeah. I think it would be very different, though. It'd be a very different type of terrifying than what Alan Arkin gives us. So, yeah. So, but basically the plot of this movie, just kind of an overview of it. So we have a woman named Lisa who is in Montreal, and she's smuggling heroin inside of a doll that has been hollowed out. And she's supposed to bring this to somebody specific, but she feels like she's being watched, or she is being watched, and so she hands it off to another passenger to get away from it. And that passenger is Sam Hendricks, who happens to be married to recently blinded Audrey Hepburn, Suzy. And so he unwittingly brings drugs home to their apartment in Greenwich Village. And as I said to you before we started recording, I feel like in the 1960s in New York, there were easier ways to get heroin. But the setup is entertaining.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so let's talk about that, because you wanted to talk about the drug angle first. Yeah. So why don't we talk about the representation, I guess.
Yeah.
Particularly hard drugs. And you have to say, like, this isn't There's some films from particularly from the 1950s and early 60s that are like people going absolutely wackadoodle on like pot, and it's always very funny because it's like, have any of you ever smoked marijuana in your life? Because I really don't think you have if you think this is how people behave on marijuana. But heroin like is actually a very, very nasty drug.
Heroin is very nasty. It's insanely addictive, and I mean that one is one that will ruin lives, and doesn't take long to do that either. But I think because I mean we are talking in this movie, we are talking an insane amount of shit that happens over a very tiny amount of drugs. But I think that what's interesting is looking at this in the context of when this movie and the play would have come out in the mid to late 60s, and how drugs really proliferated in the 60s. They existed, they've always existed, but you know, there was just sort of this cultural shift, and in response to that, there was a lot of pushback, and eventually this led to the quote unquote war on drugs. You know, much later. That didn't officially really happen in the 60s, but it started, like, that mindset started there.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this movie is more a representation of the fear and paranoia of the way drugs are creeping into our houses, you know, into our homes. And it's just they're, you know, basically what we're seeing is this representation of how you know, you could anybody could just unwittingly be in the crosshairs of these evil drug traffickers. And so I think it's campy in that way, and it really just kind of heightens this paranoia that people already have. But it also is sort of a shortcut to get us to ultimately what is just a little, like, a really nifty thriller about this blind woman trapped in her home being menaced by bad guys.
It's very much the MacGuffin. And you know, the doll gets referenced a number of times, and I think Suzy never actually really knows. Maybe she might know at the end, like, what he's actually after, like why this doll is so important. But I think that really the only character the major character who knows is Roach, that like what the doll actually contains. There's this whole thing like, oh, we just have to get this doll. And whatever it is, it's so important that he just, you know, has to have it. But yeah, it's a shortcut. It's sort of like, okay, so I guess you could have made it jewels. The doll was stuffed with jewels, or
which in my memory is what it was until I started watching it again. I was like, oh, I forgot this is just over drugs.
Yeah, well, and the drugs, like you say, I think do date the film a little bit, because it is at that kind of, you know, 1966, 67. You are kind of at the cusp of, you've got kind of the hippie movement is building. You've got drugs are very much in more in the mainstream consciousness. And this like lack of understanding, which, to be totally honest, runs all the way through to today, of like this hysteria around drug trafficking and what drugs, any kind of drugs. So you get like I say, you get movies that do this with marijuana. It's like, marijuana is not that kind of a drug. All the way through to something much more serious like heroin and cocaine, or, you know, eventually meth, that kind of thing. So it is this like hysteria, and it does date the film, as well as I was saying earlier, it gives it that kind of 1960s sort of schlocky edge to it. In places it feels like a higher caliber, like, I don't know, Corman production, right?
That's a good comparison. Yeah,
it has some of those elements to it. So it has that kind of edge of camp, maybe even a little bit of an edge of self-awareness, but that extremity. And so that's actually partially why, particularly nearing the end of the film, I was like, oh, this has like, it's not a slasher, it's not a giallo, it's none of those things, but it has these little tinges of that. It has these horror movie aspects, and that sort of heightened emotion, heightened hysteria, heightened fear that we come to associate, and that also kind of doesn't undercut, but sort of underplays a little bit the suspense within it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting balance, but yeah. So the Corman, or like just some of the William Castle, even like some of the more B movie edges from this period.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Where we do see shades of Hitchcock in this, I think, because I mean we picked this deliberately because this is part of our Hitchcockian, we're looking at films that have sort of that feel to them. And I think that there are some things that happen here that do feel like something from the world or the mind of Hitchcock. For example, this is a single location movie mostly. It does start off in Montreal and goes to the airport and everything. But once we arrive at this apartment, we never really leave the apartment. There's a lot of coming and going, but we stay there. And so we get to know this apartment really, really well. And it's kind of it's a basement apartment. It's kind of this quirky, very specific design to it. And you really get to familiarize yourself with the layout. I have never, and I'm sure this is just my experience, but I love the way that the stairs, because it's a basement, I love that the way the stairs are inside the apartment instead of outside the apartment.
Yeah, it's I think it's probably very specific to some place like New York, and especially so it's set in Greenwich Village. The exterior is actually St. Luke's in Greenwich Village. And yeah, it's basically like the downs. It probably would have been the kitchen, actually, of like the brownstone.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got, like, I believe you've got two entrances as well. There's the external one with the stairs that go up and then go down. And then you also have another external entrance that would have been like the kitchen entrance or the basement entrance, where you could actually walk down the stairs from the street and go in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes it a bit weird, I think. It also means there are multiple levels to an apartment that really was just a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And so it makes it a little weird in itself, the fact that it isn't above ground.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, when I was surprised by this film, because I thought for some reason that she was like in a house. Not in like that. For whatever reason, I just had it in my head that this was about like more of a home invasion story.
Mm-hmm.
And that it wasn't an apartment, but it was an entire house that she had to work with. And I like the use of the space, because it is a very confined, claustrophobic space, but at the same time has so much potential, as we see, for like creating this mayhem and using the space itself and the darkness of the space in New York City against the killers at the end.
I think this is one of those areas where you can really see how this was translated from the stage, because a stage production, and I have not seen it on stage, but I can imagine, because a theater production is going to be more limited in what you can do with your setting, and something like this, I can see why it would really make sense to do it in a small apartment where you don't have to have a lot of space to move around. But I think that this is a really good example of when you can translate from the stage to the screen and still make it feel like you're really using everything that you have access to. They didn't have to expand it into a much bigger place, into a big house. They could still keep it to a smaller, into an apartment, but really make it feel like you're really fully like living in that space and really being part of that. And I think they make really good use of that set.
Oh yeah, it's very well done. It also, I saw a couple of people say that there are holes in the plot, and there probably are, but I felt like it made sense. Like everything fit together in watching the film. There were a few places where I was like, well, why doesn't she do this kind of thing? But I think that it feels realistic. It's like, okay, I understand why the cops don't get called, or like when the cops get called and when they don't get called. I understand like the choices that she makes. I understand sort of the way that the killers initially, I keep on calling them killers, there's only really one killer, but the way that they initially sort of make use of her blindness and of the space, the set itself, to sort of manipulate her and gaslight her literally into believing things that aren't true. And how then she begins to latch onto and click onto the lies and the places where things don't make sense. Once we get into like that whole section, once we really get the killers entering the space, it really builds the tension well. And it, like you say, it uses the set well. And also the things that we're introduced to. So we're introduced to like her learning to navigate this space. She's a character, she wasn't blind from birth. She was blinded in an accident.
About a year ago.
And so the whole thing is that she's still learning things about how to navigate the world as a blind woman. And she knows certain things, but she doesn't know others. She's learning Braille, right? So she's finally getting like better at Braille. She's learning how to navigate her space and find things without help, things like that. And so the things that she doesn't know or isn't capable of, I think makes sense within that context as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that they did really well. There's even details that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of and that I don't remember noticing before. Like when she's talking, I think she's on the phone with Sam after she gets home from school, and she makes some comment about reading a children's book because she is just learning to read Braille. And I hadn't really thought about, oh yeah, if you're suddenly blinded and you're learning Braille, you're not going to just jump into War and Peace. You're going to learn, you're going to learn on simpler things. So just those details I thought were really interesting. We also learn that she met Sam like as a result of the accident. So they haven't even known each other that long. And I think that is also part of the really important development of this story and why it's easy for her to kind of not know what has happened, like what she's getting herself into, because he's this wonderful person, but they also like as she's been getting to know the world, and as a blind person she's also been getting to know this man that she's sharing her life with now too, and I think that really affects her as well.
Well, it trades on that mistrust, right? That combination of she has to be able to trust people because that's the only way she's going to be able to navigate the world, at least until she becomes more independent. And because this is not a disability she has had all or even most of her life, this is fairly new disability. In a certain sense, the audience is kind of being asked to be like, okay, what if this happened to you, right? What if you, at the age of whatever, 35, 40, suddenly lost your eyesight completely in a really horrific way, right? It's not even a disease, it's an accident, right? It's this really violent accident. And how you have to learn how to navigate the world and the people that you have to trust and the trust that you have to put in other individuals, but also the paranoia around that, because it is easier to lie to you about things that you can't see, and how she has to rely on her other senses in order to understand, to perceive the world. And in the context of the story, how she begins to realize that these men are not who they say they are, that the things that are happening are not what they're telling her is happening. And that she has to kind of, over the course of this night, become more independent, know how to move her space around, and to actually use the disability that has kind of trapped her in so many ways in a way that is actually going to wind up defeating them.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the men, these three men that enter Suzy's life. So we've got Mike and Carlino. Is that
Carlino? Yeah,
yeah,
the cop, former cop.
Yeah, Former cop, yeah. And so Richard Crenna is Mike, and he really ingratiates himself with Suzy. She feels like she can trust him. She feels really safe with him. He's on her side. He's helping her out in this scary situation while her husband's gone. And that I think is something that, just to your point, it's really diabolical the way that because she has to, as you say, she has to trust people. She can't just navigate all of this on her own. And so he really trades on that. And he knows that he can just be kind and give the appearance that he's doing all the right things for her, and that he's on her side and he's helping her, and she will believe that. And so you've got him just like very calmly talking to her and trying to soothe her fears. Meanwhile, he's waving these guys in to the apartment behind her back, so she doesn't know that he's doing this, and he just does that throughout, and it's really freaky.
It is really freaky, and it's the way that he knows things too, because they were in the apartment earlier, and that's something that the audience is aware of, right? Because so he and there's a shot like where he's looking at the picture of her husband's like platoon or whatever in World War II, right? World War II or Korea, something like that. Yeah. So he has like collected some of this knowledge. He's just like, oh, I was, I was a soldier.
With her.
Yeah. I was a soldier with your husband. So like he has this kind of, it's not just some random person who like, oh, I know your husband from work or something like that. It's like, no, it's from a specific place. Someone who's going to be trustworthy. He knows things about her husband. She's like, okay, this makes sense, right? And then and as the audience, we're watching what he's saying and the way that he's saying it, and then what he's actually doing that she can't see. One of the points, there's a great moment, because like they keep on opening and closing the blinds and in order to signal to each other, and there's a great moment where she's like, why has everybody been opening the blinds? Like she actually asks that, and that's the point at which I'm like, yeah, you guys think that she's not paying attention or that she's stupid or something, that you can, because she's a disabled woman, you can fool her, right? And it's like, she's gonna do a lot more than you think she can, basically. And like he even begins to realize there are things that he can't pull that are like not working with her, because she's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why are you moving across the room? Why are you over there when you should be over here? She figures out the whole game that they're playing with the phone number,
right,
and calling the phone booth outside. And like all of those little things. The Richard Crenna character, honestly, I hated him almost more than the Alan Arkin character, because he's so ingratiating, because he's just bold-faced lying to her.
Yep.
And he's doing it to protect his own ass. But it's like this, oh, you're being so kind and so nice to this woman who is trusting you, and you are just like fucking her over, and you're telling her these horrible lies, right? That are scaring her as well. That are making her increasingly paranoid and are using her fears against her, and it's really nasty.
Yeah That's the thing. Arkin is really terrifying in that senseless violence kind of way. He's you don't know what he's gonna do. He's unpredictable. But the Crenna character, he builds on that trust. Like he makes you trust him, and then he pulls the rug out, basically. And which is really worse. I would agree with you. I think that what Crenna does is worse ultimately, because at least with the Arkin character, that you need to be afraid of him, and you need to protect yourself from him.
Yeah.
So, and there are some really interesting ways that they build tension too. So earlier when the three men are in the apartment, and they're looking around, they're looking for this doll, which they know is there, and or it's supposed to be there. And we see the body in the closet, which is Lisa.
Oh yeah.
And then there's later on when Mike is talking to Suzy and Carlino and Rote are up by the door, and you see Rote cut the phone cord, things like that, where later like now we as the audience know things that Suzy doesn't know, and it's an interesting way to heighten that tension. It's not just, we're not just experiencing this through her, we're experiencing this like in a different way than she is, because we know that we know where the dangers are before she does. And it's just an interesting experience in really raising that tension and making it a scarier experience all around.
I really like the way this movie plays with focalization. So moving from different characters. So in the initial, because we don't actually meet Suzy until a good bit into the film. Because we get all this set up with the three men, particularly, and kind of what Rote wants and what the other two want. But like, so there's a whole sequence where she comes into the apartment for the first time. We see her for the first time, and all three of them are hiding
right
in the apartment, and she knows that someone is there, and she thinks it's the little girl from upstairs who helps her sometimes, right? Who's like kind of this, she's an interesting character too. But so like we're sitting there, and I do think this is Hitchcockian in placing us in the perspective of the villain, and kind of we're afraid for her to find them. Basically, we feel that tension of like when she moves really close to Carlino at one point, he kind of he shifts from like one side of the wall to the other so that he can get out of her way, right? And that kind of thing. You're sitting there, and you're in a certain sense, you're like, okay, what happens if she discovers them? But also, like, we're afraid for her to discover them, even though we know these are the bad guys, right? These are the ones that we don't like, we don't trust. And it plays with your perspective. And we get that throughout. And actually, the film moves closer and closer and closer to Suzy, to focalizing specifically through her, until at the nearing the end, they put out all of the lights, right? And we stop being able, so all of the things that we have relied on, we've relied on our eyes and our ability to see, to know more than she does. And then suddenly we know less than she does, because all we can hear is the sounds. We don't know what's actually happening. We don't know if she's managed to kill Roach, or what is going on. Like, and that is kind of where that tension just like builds to. And it's really well done. And it's through all of this use of focalization throughout the film.
Yeah. It's really cool technique when they cut to just a dark screen. Because before that, we've seen, the lights in the apartment are out, but we can still see what's happening. But when it goes completely dark like that, it's there's this confusion. It's just another way to ratchet up that tension. They do a really good job with that.
They do, and I guess that in the initial release, this is from the Wikipedia article. It seems to be fairly well cited. That movie theater owners actually were told to dim the lights and then turn them off as the film goes on. So it says to the legal limit. So I would imagine that turning off even more than what you usually get turned off when you're in a movie theater. So that, I guess the idea would be that by the time you get to that blackness, right, of the screen, you're pretty much sitting in complete darkness as much as possible.
Wow.
And I think that would be an amazing experience, because again, it's slowly moving you from this, as a fully sighted viewer, right? If you're a fully sighted viewer, you're moving from this full sightedness to complete darkness and that terror of not being able to see what is happening and what is specifically happening to the character you care the most about.
Yeah. Well, and that's so interesting, because if they do it slowly throughout, then you're not going to notice it until suddenly there's nothing. There's no light.
Well, and I have to say, even like watching on my television screen at night, as when it goes black, it's like, oh my God, all of the lights have gone out, right? And it's an intense experience.
Yeah. Could you imagine doing that in a theater? full
I
of
think it would be
people.
great. I think it
Mhm.
would be great. Like I think it would be a great sort of, Hitchcock talked about trying that a film is about a conversation between the creator, the director, and the audience. And so you're trying as much as possible to move that conversation as close as you can get. And that's kind of what you're doing when you're, and you can argue that it's a gimmick, but if you're sort of building that tension and creating that relationship, you're as close as you could possibly get to being literally in the film and having a conversation with the director at that level. And I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That Hitch guy was pretty smart.
Well, and he said that about Psycho. He said that Psycho was the film that he got the closest to that direct connection between the director and the audience.
Yeah.
And what you want to make of that is a question, but I think that it's an interesting way to think of cinema, that you're and of art generally, but in terms of cinema, that you're trying to create this meeting point between the viewer and the director, the artist, whoever happens to be creating it, and you can always get close to it, but you can never quite get there.
Yeah. So we kind of briefly mentioned Gloria.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Gloria is an interesting character. She's not quite a little girl. She's a little older than that, but she acts very young sometimes. She's very precocious.
She's supposed to be like 12 or 13, something like that.
Yeah, I really couldn't tell how old she was supposed to be. But she's there. She comes in and out to help Suzy because there are certain things that, and that, I think not even just because she's recently blind, but there are certain things that would be very difficult to navigate in the world if you cannot see, like grocery shopping and, paying for things. And, so Gloria comes in to help with all of that. But the reason that the bad guys couldn't find the doll is because at some point Gloria came in, saw it, and was like, I'm going to borrow that for a while. And so the doll isn't even in the apartment. It's upstairs in Gloria's house. Oh, Gloria.
I like Gloria though, because I think she could have been this sort of demon child, right? That's kind of how she's set up initially. She's like, oh, she's got kind of a weird crush on what's his name, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And but we get a little bit of her background, like her mother is never there, her father's left, she's sort of alone all of the time, and she's kind of latched on to Sam as someone who's been nice to her. And she's at adolescence, she's right at that cusp of like, she's growing up, she's getting older, and she's kind of jealous basically of Suzy.
Yeah.
But I like the fact, so that initial scene where we really meet her and her and Suzy get into this fight, and she smashes a whole bunch, or she doesn't smash, she like throws a whole bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
And like to kind of, and on the one hand, you're like, you little bitch, like you're doing this to a blind woman, right? And then she stops and she feels bad about it. She apologizes and she helps to clean up, and she even says like, I only threw unbreakable things.
Yeah.
Like she did it deliberately, right? She didn't. So there is this like this interesting thing that's happening with her character, in that she's not a bad person. She's kind of a screwed up kid who's alone all of the time and has these issues, but is basically decent and doesn't really want to hurt anybody.
Right.
So it's petty. She steals the doll because it's something that she can take.
Yeah.
Right. And she doesn't, and then she realizes like, oh my God, this is like a really bad thing. I'm gonna bring it back.
This.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it back because this has caused a lot of problems. Like it's not deliberate. She doesn't mean to do this.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you just made a point that I'm like, oh yeah, that's something I need to think about, because one of the things about Gloria is sometimes she acts much, much younger than 12, but the characterization is in that, like, I'm not quite a little kid, but I'm not quite a teenager either. And that I think is really done well. And I think that when she's acting much younger than her age, part of it, this movie really, and maybe this is because it comes from, originated on the stage, I don't know, but they really lean into really not hamming it up, but kind of like just really like extra big emotions, extra big, like there's a lot of like almost to the point of overacting things, and to emphasize the emotions. So when you look at it that way, I guess she's not really acting much younger than 12. It's just she's acting bigly young 12.
Yeah, I think again it's that fitting into a specific genre that the cast and the directing and the script in a lot of ways elevates it beyond that. I don't really say elevates it because I love those movies, but it shifts. It's not a schlock film, right? It isn't like I say Roger Corman, but it does have those edges to it. Like you say, those big emotions, that sort of, I mean, and even by the end, like we effectively get the final slasher jump scare. I was watching it just like, oh my God, it's just like Michael Myers. Like and this is 11 years before Michael Myers. But in that sense, like I like that. I enjoyed that. It's just like, oh, this is ridiculous, but also it's scary. And you get that balance, you get those edges with all of the performances as well. Like you said, with Gloria, and you mentioned before we started recording, you mentioned Audrey Hepburn's performance.
Yeah. What I had said was because Audrey, as we mentioned, was nominated for Best Actress, and I said I feel like part of that is she was really nominated for Most Actress. So, because she does a lot here, and a lot of it is just like over the top, at the end when she's trying to find the plug for the refrigerator, and you understand what she's doing, but the way that she's screaming, it's not just that she's screaming, it's the way that she's doing that and like over exaggerating her movements with her arms and like kind of flailing around and things. There's just so much extra that it's kind of silly, but also because this movie is kind of scary, you go along with it and you can accept it. But it's also a lot of overemphasizing things that go a little bit past how a person probably would normally react in this situation.
Yes and no. I mean, I think that's one of the things we always complain about, and even about the final girl, right? Well, why would you run towards the woods? why would you go up to the attic rather than like out onto the street? That kind of thing. And I think that there's a deliberateness so that the audience, is kind of we're in a safe position, right? That's why we watch these movies. Right. We get to be scared, but we're getting vicarious thrills out of it. We're having fun with it. So
and I would handle this so much better. Yeah.
Exactly. If I was in this situation, here's what I would do. It's very easy to kind of make those pronouncements. And then of course, if you were actually in that situation, you probably would just be screaming and flailing. Maybe or maybe not. Like, it is that kind of question, particularly I think in this character's case, she's blind. Yeah. Right. And she has been psychologically tortured for the past however long. And she doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't know when help is coming. Right. The audience kind of knows because it's like, all right, we've got 5 minutes left in the movie. So help has to be on the way at this point. But she doesn't know that. She could be trapped in this apartment with this man for another 2 hours, in which case she's probably dead.
Or he could be about to kill her. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that like I agree that she overacts in places and it's extreme. I think that the build up to it sort of tempers that sensation.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Well, and I just want to clarify, I don't disagree with any of the actual decisions that she makes, the things that she tries to do. I think it's actually really smart.
She is,
yeah. Like when she does and does not try to call the cops, when she, even the stuff at the end. So Carlino and Mike are gone, dead, and Rote is still coming after her, and he's got gasoline, and he's, trying to scare her that way. She's broken all the light bulbs in the apartment. Which is another one of those things where I'm like, that is so smart. She didn't just unscrew them. She broke them so they can't just be plugged back in,
Yeah.
And then figuring out that with everything dark, she can navigate because she knows this apartment really well. He doesn't, and she can play with that. And it's like, I think the choices that she makes are really smart. It's just there are a couple of times where I'm like, all right, Audrey, scale it back just a little.
Well, there's one choice that she makes. I'm like, I don't understand this. And maybe you can explain it. She breaks all the light bulbs.
Uh-huh.
She turns off everything that she can. She's like, okay, so she basically levels the playing field, as it were, but even more so because she knows the apartment, right? And she knows what she's done. So she knows how to navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Except she doesn't turn off. She turns on deliberately her husband's the light that he uses to develop film, right?
Yeah.
And then leaves it on. And then at some point she goes and turns it off.
Yeah.
So she knows that it's on the entire time. And that's one point where I'm like, why is she not turning off? Like, so maybe she might not be able to break it, but she could definitely turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't really know where it is. So the entire time I'm like, she just leave that on for the benefit of the audience.
Probably.
But
that's the only thing I could
decision.
think. Yeah. So that we could see that, because she's not luring him anywhere with it. So yeah, I think that's just for the audience's benefit.
But that's what's so like it's an error, I feel like, in the film, because you've got this whole setup. It's like, okay, this is really smart and clever, but why she just leaves this light on for no good reason, right? And I feel like it could have been arranged a little bit better, where there's even a light that she didn't know was still on and she realizes that it is, or something, or she
thought she turned it off but she actually turned it on, or
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a weird thing. But so let's talk about the Alan Arkin a little bit, because we haven't really talked about Alan Arkin.
Saving the best for last.
Oh, I mean, he's great. He is terrifying.
I can't believe he didn't get nominated for this movie, because he is so good.
He's just like, we've talked with Hitchcock films before about this eruption of the chaos world, that idea of like this monstrosity in human form, and trying to understand what human monstrosity means. And he is just that, and he's so slick. And so, and like from the moment he comes on screen, just like there is something deeply wrong with this man. Like, yes, he's scary, and he's unpredictable, and that he's perfectly willing to kill anybody that gets in his way. And is perfectly willing to kill anyone who doesn't get in his way, just because he likes it. And that kind of unpredictability and that lack of motive just makes him that much scarier. And Arkin, I think, does a great job, because he could have overplayed it. He could have made this like guy sort of crazy and cackling, but he's also really deliberate and he's very clear on what he wants, and that he is going to get it no matter what. And it's a brilliant performance in a lot of ways, and very, for anyone who kind of knows Arkin from his later career, is very like disconcerting to watch.
Yeah, the first thing that I know I saw him in was So I Married an Axe Murderer, where he plays this like kindly police captain.
Yeah,
he's he's just so sweet, and he's asking Tony, like, Tony, how you doing? You all right? And then of course Grandpa in Little Miss Sunshine, where he won the Oscar. He was in Argo. Like, yeah, like these, he's known for being this kind of, sometimes inappropriate, but always very loving, kind person. And yeah, to go back in time and see this as one of his earliest roles. He'd only been in a few films before this. And I think one of the things that makes him so terrifying is the fact that he's not chaotic, is the fact that, I mean, he is in the sense that you don't know what he's going to do. But he's very controlled. He knows what he's going to do. And that is very scary. and he does such a good job
Yeah.
of just being this menace, and just even the control he has over his own movements. It's not just the way that he reacts to things or the words that he chooses. It's even like just when, the scene that I referenced before where Suzy's talking to Mike, and then Rote and Carlito are up by the door, and Rote, the Arkin character, just reaches over and pulls up, in the background. We're listening to this conversation, but in the background, he reaches over and pulls up the phone cord and just slices it.
Mhm.
And it's just so smooth and so calm. He just does that. And then, that just moves on. And it's those kinds of choices that are just like, this guy could do anything. Who knows what he's going to think of.
Yeah, and when you hit that ending where she's alone with him and you don't know, like, Sam is not coming home, Mike is gone. Mike and Carlina, who are not, they're not good people, but they're not killers, right? They're
Right.
not crazy and sadistic in the way that he is.
Right.
So like Mike would draw the line on this, but Mike's dead.
Yeah.
Right. So when you get that to that ending and she's alone with him, just like, he will not stop at anything, like, and he's going to enjoy it. That's the other thing. It's not just that, like, I want this doll, I'm gonna hurt you and I'm gonna like it as this is happening.
Yeah, and that's really, by the time we get to that big scene, he's throwing gasoline and then he's lighting matches. He is on the verge of burning himself up along with her, and it doesn't even seem like that idea bothers him. He doesn't seem scared of that. And it doesn't seem like he's unaware that he could light himself on fire either. He's just that menacing, and that he just is out for blood just because he can. There's a line about Lisa, who's the woman who gave the doll to Sam in the first place, and she's the one that was murdered in the apartment, and then her body was found later. There's a line where Rote makes a comment about her, and like I think it's Suzy that says something about, you killed that woman, and he says, we'll leave Mrs. Rote out of this. Was that really his woman? What?
Well, I think that because, like, he initially, when he introduces himself to Mike and Carlino, he's like, he keeps talking about her as that she was checked into a hotel as Mrs. Rote.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then that when her body is found, that's like the name that they know her by or something.
Right.
Like that. So I don't think that they're married or anything like that. I think that that's just a game that he's playing. We don't even know if his real name is Rote.
It probably isn't, but and I don't think and that's the thing, is like, that's why I said, is that his woman? Because I'm not saying like, oh, they were married, because I don't know, but like, I don't like, would he really? I think there's just even more of, what is this guy's deal if he would kill somebody that was that close to him just to get what he needed, what he wanted.
Well, this again, I think, is what makes that character so scary. Is that goes back to that eruption of the chaos world. It's like he's sprung fully formed from the earth. We don't actually know what his name is. We don't know who he's affiliated with. We don't know how he really knows Lisa, because she's dead before we have any information about that. He accosts her at the airport, and she's obviously scared of him.
Right.
But we don't know how he knows that she was there, or like what the deal was with all of that. Like, we've no clue. We know very, very little about him. And what we do know is stuff that he has told Mike and Carlino, but that we don't know if any of that is even true. So he is this like face, like, again, going back to that sort of proto slasher element. He's like this faceless, nameless killer. Yeah. That we know just enough about him to be terrified of him, and that's really it. It's played so well. It's played with a degree of like mystery, I guess, that makes him fascinating to watch. And I think that's a lot of it comes down to Arkin. while at the same time realizing that we have no knowledge of this person. So like they're like, what could stop him? Nothing. She's going to have to kill him. The only way that he is going to be stopped is if he dies.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happens. And she manages to stab him. Of course, then we have the jump scare at the end, which is great. And then he is super dead, and Suzy is hiding behind the refrigerator, and Sam comes home with the police and Gloria, because Suzy had sent Gloria to go head Sam off at the bus station, because he's been sent on this like wild goose chase off to New Jersey. And so that was one of the smart things, that without being able to get a hold of Sam in any other way, it was really smart to send Gloria, just go wait for him. He's going to be on one of those buses. I don't know which one. You just wait until he gets there. And then tell him to bring the cops. And that's exactly what happens. And then after everything she has been through, after all of the terror she has endured while he's been gone, he's like, hey, baby, you're such a rock star. Walk through all this debris to me, because you can do it. Bastard. Not impressed.
No, not impressed. This woman has so much trauma. Oh my God.
I hope she divorced him. I really do.
There is, you mentioned earlier that like she only knows him. She's not actually known him that long.
Right.
And she's known him, she's never actually she's only known him after her blindness. And there is just this edge of wrongness, right, to that relationship. And I don't know if it's intentional on the part of the film, but it leaves you with kind of a paranoid feeling at the end. Not so much that like he's abusive or anything like that, but just that there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
That there's like a weird thing going on that is going to be damaging at some point. And it does. This film did, as I really enjoyed it, but this film did leave me with the sense of just not almost bleakness. It left me in a similar way that Psycho leaves me, in that it's like everything is not going to be okay, actually.
Yeah.
The good people have survived, the killer has been apprehended, it's all over. But it's not. There's something that isn't over, and that's the sensation that I had at the end, which can be a very pleasurable sensation in a certain sense, because it doesn't wrap everything up perfectly.
It's interesting hearing you say that, because I'm really curious what the intention was and how it was received, because the way I watch it, for myself, being a woman who lives in 2025, I'm like, fuck that guy. But I also watch it with the sense of like, I feel like the intention there is for this to be this empowering moment, that she's survived all of this, and now she can navigate anything, as she is the world champion blind lady, which is a running joke. And I feel like
she is.
that, yeah, she is.
She doesn't need him. That's
exactly. But I feel like the intention is that he's supporting that, and he's like cheering her on, of like, look at what you did, now you can do this. And that is not how I, as a woman in the modern world, view it. I'm like, no, this sucks. That's like, run to your wife who was almost murdered, you asshole. But I think it's supposed to be an empowering moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's again, it's like, okay, what is the film really intending? And then again, also how the audience would have responded to it. And I always guess that there'd be people that would have a number of different responses. I think my guess is that the film's intention is that empowerment, that you're describing. I don't know whether it succeeds at it, and actually, I'd be interested at anyone who's listening to this to say like what their feelings are about it. There are a lot of horror films and thrillers from this period. So the kind of the 60s and then into the 70s, where that bleakness does develop a lot more. And that's why, so I kept on thinking of this as a proto slasher, Having some affinity with things like Psycho or Peeping Tom, or even, and then this is going to be later, Hitchcock's Frenzy, that sense of like things are okay, but they're not.
Yeah.
Everything has ended happily, but it hasn't really.
Right.
It's that openness that you don't get in a lot of like classical Hollywood films, and are really beginning to get, particularly it's starting in the 1950s, but particularly in the 60s and 70s, where the good guys are not the good guys anymore. We can't put everything into this cute, fixable package where all of the villains are defeated and everything is okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's a little bit, I think the closest that you come to is actually the ending of Gaslight, where it's like, and now everything is great. It's like,
is it though?
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
And again, not the intention really of the film, but that's the sensation. Yeah. Right? There are those edges to it. And I think Wait Until Dark has even more of that. And part of that is because of the era that it's being made in, and the trajectory that cinema is taking at that point.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
My only final thought is that, and I hate doing this because I'm like, I should know, you have to take the film on its own merits. I admit, because we're talking about this as Hitchcockian, I was like, okay, what if Hitchcock made this movie?
Yeah.
I kept on going back to it, and one of the things, I think that it's an excellent film in a lot of ways. I do think Hitchcock would have cut back on the schlockiness a little bit. I think that would have been pulled back. And the other thing that I kept thinking about was the fact that we see a lot at the beginning, right? We have a lot of knowledge. And I was thinking about the possibility of like, what if we didn't have that knowledge? What if we the story opened with Suzy coming home, right? And then we get introduced to the whole doll thing and everything like that. And then we begin to get these characters, these men who are moving into her space, and something is obviously wrong. But like, how much we would question what they're saying and what Suzy's experience is, and particularly her relationship with her husband. Because part of the story is that they are like telling her is that he's suspected of something, that he's suspected of the murder of this woman. And we know that none of that is true, but she believes it is true. So we're in this, heightened sense of knowledge. And I would have been interested just to see, like, what if we were always in her position, that we didn't know what was true and what wasn't, but we are beginning to see, like, these men are not right. There's something wrong. Like, there's something off with all of this. And that was just something I kept thinking about watching the film. And, and you would lose something on the other side of it. And, maybe I'm talking about a film that just, it would be a different way of approaching the story. But that was something I kept thinking about, and the way that Hitchcock might have used that. And the different, he would have made a different film, obviously, but how would it have been different?
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
But like I say, I hate doing that because it's like, no, the film is what it is. You shouldn't be like, well, if only they had changed everything about it.
But this is the assignment this month, right? We're talking Hitchcockian. So yeah. We talked a little bit about what makes this feel like something in the world of Hitchcock, but it's also fair to talk about how it would have been different had he made it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, I do think, like with Peeping Tom, and this is the latest film that we talked about, so this is 1967, but that you do have that conversation between Hitchcock's work and the work that he did in psychological thrillers, and the influence that he had, the outsized influence, really, that he had on the development of cinema into, the 1950s and 60s. These are all films that definitely bear a relationship to his work and the influence that his work had.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And always a pleasure talking movies with you, Lauren.
Yes, you too, Karen.
Thank you. Next week we are We're transitioning into for the month of September. We thought it'd be fun to talk about someone that we've talked about a lot of his movies, but somehow we've never done a series on Cary Grant. So we're going to do a few Cary Grant movies this month. And to transition us from Hitchcockian August into Cary Grant September, we're going to talk Suspicion from 1941, which is a film directed by Alfred Hitchcock and starring Cary Grant and Joan Fontaine. So
yes, it is. It's also a nice trajectory too, because it's in the don't trust your husband mode.
There you go. We're sensing a theme here.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm looking forward to talking about Suspicion, because Suspicion is my favorite Hitchcock film that doesn't exist but does exist. I love it and I hate it so much. Like, I have so many mixed feelings about Suspicion.
And you were the one that recommended it. So
I know.
I'm
it's one that doesn't get discussed very much because I think it has these issues. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then Cary Grant.
Yes. Yeah. So come back next week and hear that. In the meantime, if you would like to help support the show, you can do that by visiting patreon.com/citizendame and supporting us for that, for helping us keep the show ad free. You get the episodes early. We also have bonus series. We did Our Flag Means Death. We're finishing up speaking of Alfred Hitchcock, our Alfred Hitchcock Presents series, which we talked about all of the episodes directed by Hitchcock. So you can hear that. We're going to be starting up a new bonus series really soon as well. And we would like to thank our current patrons who are just amazing. And they are Abby, Audra, Brian, Connor, Estefania, Ferdinand, Heather, James, Judy, Carriata, Matt, Michelle, MK, Monty, Nanina, Noel, Robert, Roxy, Steve, and Sharon. So thank you all. There's other ways to support us. You can go to our Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/citizendame. And then you can find us elsewhere on the internet. Our website is citizendamepod.com. You can email us, citizendamepod@gmail.com. And you can find us on social media. On Instagram and Blue Sky, we are at Citizen Dame Pod. And on Letterboxd, we are at Citizen Dame. You can also find us individually. Lauren, where are you?
I am on Instagram and Letterboxd at LH Business.
And I am on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Karen M. Peterson. So that is it. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Icebox needs defrosting, darling. Only my way this time. It's more practical. Use plenty of boiling water.
What if I burn both my hands off your way?
Don't. The uncanteen's in the emergency drawer. If the weather's okay, try walking over to the studio and back. No cheating.
Do I have to be the world's champion blind lady?
Yes.
Then I will be. I'll be whatever you want me to be. Just tell me what you want, and then that's what I'll be.
Suzy.
Oh, I mean it.
Shh. I don't want you ever to be anything but Suzy. Because that's the way I love you.
Do you? Do you?
What do you think?